I got this entire bag of books for something like 350 to 380 pesos. I think it was closer to 350. Let me check how much that is in dollars. 350 pesos is around $20 American. And when you see what I got, you will be probably not as happy as I am, maybe a little jealous. That's the point of these videos, is to just make you seethe with jealousy. I'm going to set aside the two really good ones. These are all really good ones. And there's a bunch that I left behind too. Village of the Damned by John Wyndham. Got this for 20 pesos, which is just about $1, just over $1 American dollar. This is the Will Smith edition of the Midwich Cuckoos. It's an inside joke. It means the movie tie-in edition. This is the full text, I believe, I hope, of the Midwich Cuckoos from 1957. And I have not read this. I have read Out of the Deeps. That's the only Wyndham I've read. I found a copy of that at this bookstore too. If I wasn't in Mexico, I would have picked it up, but I already read and reviewed it on the channel. I did also get this great 90s edition, UK printing of the Chrysalids, which is his other major work. This one, Midwich Cuckoos, and Day of the Triffids, I think, are his three biggest. This was 60 pesos, so about $3.50 maybe. Great cover. All of these are going to be read. 100% of these are going to be read. Lioness by Jack Vance, his high fantasy epic. There's at least 2 books in this series. I actually found the sequel to this at a different used bookstore last week. And I'll put a link in the description to the used bookstore where I got all these. They have a section in the back, and this is the second Mexican bookstore I have found to do this, where they take all the English A-format paperbacks and mass markets, and they just kind of cram them into a section, and they don't differentiate between genre. And I've had great luck both times, obviously this time especially. And books in Mexico can be a little pricey. They're actually, in my experience, a little more expensive than used books in the United States because they're a more scarce commodity, these good books in English. This, I cannot wait to read. I've only read his science fantasy and science fiction. I guess Eyes of the Overworld and Cudgel Saga and Rialto the Marvelous, you could argue, are just straight fantasy. I kind of consider them science fantasy, but this is just strictly high fantasy. By popular demand, Raymond Chandler. I was opining about my difficulty cracking into crime fiction in reference to a James Ellroy book that I picked up, and everybody again and again said, read Chandler, it's all about the prose, and the plotting is secondary. This was 40 pesos. It's got this great little subtle beveling thing going on the cover. And it's 4 novellas. I've not heard of this. I know next to nothing about crime fiction, so I don't know if that's one of his more celebrated works or not. This is, I can't believe I found this. Switch Bitch by Roald Dahl, one of his compilations of erotic short stories, comedy short stories. This was 50 pesos. Yeah, I had a copy of this in a contemporary mass market printing that wasn't that nice that I sold when I moved. This, I don't know if I will be able to part with it, and it actually might be worth money. I'll have to look it up. But going to be reading that, and probably, to my mind, the find of the day. I couldn't believe it when I found it. It is Bad Brains by Kathy Koja. This, I have on good authority, is one of the horror authors that I should read. And that authority specifically is Juan from Plagued by Visions. I'll link him in the description. He has a great channel that's mostly about transgressive fiction and horror. And he gave me a copy of The Cipher, which is also by this author. But I've heard this book talked about a lot. And judging by the artwork, it seems like it'll be fairly hardcore. We'll see how I hold up. And this is in the Abyss line of fiction from Dell, which is, my understanding, more extreme fiction. Great jacket photo from Kathy. And this is a first print, I'm pretty sure, first mass market. The nice tanned pages. This is from 92, March of 92. Number line stops at 2. I think that's second printing. So crazy haul, crazy haul. I have put myself in a situation now because I have to read as many of these as possible before moving in a few days again. So I'm going to be doing a lot of reading. Space is very limited. I'm going to run some B-roll that I shot. This bookstore was in a line of 3 large bookstores in Mexico City in the Central District. So if you come down here, I highly recommend, especially that one bookstore, but there's a nice little row of them. And they all had policies. They had signs up that said no photos. So I didn't really film that much. So here is the pile of the stuff that I passed on. If a miracle happens and I read all these in time, maybe I'll go back there and pick them up. We all know that that's not going to happen, but there's some great stuff in there. And there's a whole middle island that's just stacks and stacks and stacks of books to be gone through. So, and I didn't touch them, so there's probably still some gems in there. Anyway, enjoy this B-roll. Thanks for watching.